Hey everybody, it's Sil Heartwing, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I will be redesigning the last 3 ponies from the main 6 My Little Pony Gen 4. And if you haven't watched it already, I highly recommend checking out the first video in this series, since it not only has some of my favorite designs so far, but also gives some of the building blocks for the design decisions I'll be making in today's video. But without further ado, let's get into today's video. First, we're going to redesign Applejack. Similar to Rarity, I didn't have a lot of ideas on how I wanted to design Applejack, but I did have a few more than I had for Rarity. First off, I knew that I wanted Applejack's kind of body build to more reflect mane horses as well as draft and Clydesdale horses, mostly because as a farm pony, I think she would build up a lot of muscle over time, even for an earth pony. So she has a very big, muscular frame compared to the rest of the main 6, even Pinkie Pie, who was another earth pony. But other than that, I didn't really change too much about her design. I shortened her hair a bit, kind of just because I thought it'd be easier to maintain than the long mane she has in the show, even if she did tie it up. I also got rid of her hat and exchanged it for a bandana in this sketch. Not really for any particular reason other than I just wanted this design to stand out, and there wasn't too many ways I could think to do that in her base design other than to change out kind of the stuff that she was wearing as well as her hairstyle, just because if you look at the show, honestly, AJ's design is just so solid to begin with. There isn't much I really wanted to change about her, because when you look at Applejack in the show, you say, yeah, that looks like an Applejack. And so there wasn't a lot of ways I could think to build too much off of what they had done already without either weakening the design or her no longer feeling like Applejack. But you may have also noticed that I added some patterning to AJ like I do with a lot of the ponies in this series. For her, I decided I wanted to give her a nose blaze along with some stockings, mostly because when you look at draft horses or Clydesdales, they tend to have a lot of this type of patterning on them, which again, since that was a big inspiration for AJ, I thought would be really fitting. But now that we're kind of finishing up the line art for AJ, I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of the colors I used in her design. Obviously, I wanted to use the yellow and orange from her original show design, just because whenever I think of AJ, I can't really picture her with any kind of different colors. But I knew going into this, I somehow wanted to incorporate more green and red in her design, since when you think of an apple, you don't really think of the yellow or orange variants out there. You more typically think of maybe a Gala, Fuji, or Granny Smith kind of apple, all of which are either red or green apples. So I made her bandana green, and I also added some red patterning onto her, which ended up in the end kind of looking more like a flea bitten pattern than anything else, which wasn't originally intentional, but definitely looks nice. But then there's also the aspect of her cutie mark. You can kind of see I started out with Granny Smith apples and kind of tried to make that work, but it just wasn't. So I tried adding like apple blossoms, and that still wasn't looking good to me. I kind of thought that maybe it was just that they were looking too realistic, but I couldn't think of how I wanted to draw them that wouldn't look that way. But eventually I kind of just turned to some of my friends on a Discord server and said, hey, what can I do to fix this? Because I'm just really struggling with Applejack's cutie mark, very similar to how I struggled with Rainbow Dashes. And a lot of them said that they didn't think that the green apples like Granny Smith were really working too much, and that I should maybe try working with red. And so I did. It still wasn't working. And I also got a few comments saying that maybe a basket of apples would look better. And I do agree, I'm still not fully happy with how her cutie mark looks, but it's definitely a lot better than how I was originally drawing it. And overall, I'm still pretty happy with her design. It just, it bugs me a little bit, just a little bit. while I'm not fully happy with the way things like her cutie mark turned out, I am very happy overall with AJ's design. I liked her little bandana, I thought the short hair was cute, and I really liked the coloration on her, which is probably why I honestly didn't like the cutie mark, was just because I liked the natural patterning better. But in the end, I'm going to be really excited to use her in the next projects coming up. Up next for today, I'm going to be redesigning Fluttershy. In the show, she was just very cutesy and shy, obviously, but she was also quickly one of my favorite ponies in the show, so I was really excited to go into this video and be remaking her. For her base horse design, I used a lot of Arabian inspirations similar to Rainbow Dash. Unlike Rainbow Dash though, I chose to use a lot more soft bird shapes rather than the harsh lines in her design. For Fluttershy, I mostly went with doves and chickens, which is gonna sound weird until I tell you why. For the doves, I mostly used them for her wing shape as well as making her look super fluffy. I wanted to get a feathered look while still maintaining that fluffy aspect I wanted in her design, which was really hard without making it look like fur, and the doves really helped with that. You could see how they still look very poofy and fluffy, but you can still tell they have feathers, which is very crucial in Fluttershy's design. And then the next bird I used for her was the fancy chickens in particular. For Fluttershy's hoof feathers, I wanted them to look more droopy, kind of shy like her personality is, and I found that some of the best birds to demonstrate how to layer feathers like that were fancy chickens, which is actually very opposite to how I drew Rainbow Dash's feathers, where hers were more so inspired by a Hermes and a very fast flying kind of sort. But I think it definitely really helps with Fluttershy that those inspirations were used. They made her look a lot softer, a lot shyer, and overall just a very approachable character, but with still those shy aspects to her. Now this is where things get kind of fun with Fluttershy's design. Similar to AJ, I wanted to keep her original color palette just because I loved it so much, but I added a lot more to it. So in her original color, her coat is yellow and her hair is pink. With her coat, I decided to add more orangey tones, similar to the way fancy chickens kind of have that ombre in their feathers, and also decided to add some white speckling because of the same inspiration. You can also see here that I added some green into her hair, and I was more so inspired to do this by her love of nature, as well as characters kind of like Mitsuri from Demon Slayer, where I thought that those color choices were just really unique and cool. You can also see here that I chose to add some braids into Fluttershy's hair, which was more so inspired because of her love of animals, which I know sounds weird, but let me explain. I kind of picture that Fluttershy would be sitting in her cottage, playing with her animal friends, and one of the things I kind of envision them doing and kind of interacting with each other is having these long braid trains where they just kind of sit and braid Fluttershy's hair and maybe even nest in it a little bit, take a little nap here and there. So I wanted her hair to kind of reflect that, which is why she has all the braids. I just don't think she would have the heart to take them out after they were braiding her hair for so long. Now, as sort of a last minute detail, I decided to add some leaves into Fluttershy's hair. I felt like being in the woods and playing with animals for so long, she probably would have a little bit of a messier appearance despite her kind of graceful look. And I also decided to change a lot about her cutie mark. I didn't keep the butterflies at all. I think the only thing that really is the same is the fact that they're the same color as her original cutie mark. But I decided to use a feather and some flowers instead, since I think that better represents the love she has for nature and animals, rather than the butterflies originally. I know she originally lands on them and that's why she has them as her cutie mark, but other than that, we don't really see her interact with insects all that commonly. So I thought it was just a better choice to have a more animalistic cutie mark rather than an insect one. But yeah, that's about it for Fluttershy. She was one of my favorite ponies in the show, and she's one of my favorite designs here. I don't think she'll be topping Pinkie Pie anytime soon, but she sure has a close second place. Now last, but certainly not least, we have Twilight Sparkle. Twilight Sparkle was a unique sketch for me because I wanted to do both her unicorn form and her alicorn form. So she kind of presented her own challenges where when I was posing her and kind of sketching her out, I had to be mindful of spacing because I had to fit 2 ponies on this tiny little page. Maybe I could have broken it up into 2, but I really didn't think that was fitting since she is technically still 1 pony. When sketching her, I wanted to keep her shape more boxy and deer-like as opposed to Rarity, who had some more soft, kind of horse inspirations. But that's mostly because I think of Twilight as a very square-based character, and not too round and soft like I did for Rarity. The other kind of main change I did with Twilight's design was with her hair. I wanted to keep kind of a straight look, but I wanted it to have more interest and texture to it. So I kind of grabbed a reference of a jellyfish hairstyle, since I love that most of them do have straight hair, but they style it in such a way that it has so much volume and curl and texture to it. And I thought that was just really nice and aesthetic for Twilight. And for her alicorn design, I went ahead and used swans as her main bird inspiration for her Pegasus part. I thought that the wings were nice and fluffy. They still look kind of awkward but graceful at the same time, kind of implying how she has that natural unicorn grace but is a little bit clumsier when it comes to her more winged elements. I also played around with adding some feathering to her tail to have some more Pegasus inspiration, but it just wasn't working out, so I ended up removing it in the end. But now you can also see the secondary thing that I really changed about Twilight, and that was her color palette. I took an actual photo of a Twilight sky that I found that had really pretty colorations to it and that I really liked, and I decided to use that as her main color palette. Mostly because in the show, as iconic as her look is, it doesn't really give me Twilight sky, which maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't. Again, it was supposed to be like a pastel pony show, so they didn't have a lot of dark colors, which might explain it, but I definitely felt that for Twilight should be her main color palette. So she definitely has a lot darker tones to her and has a lot more contrast, I would say. In the show she had some pinks and purples, but they were all pretty close together. In this design she has a really dark coat and really bright hair, which I think makes a really nice contrast. The other thing I kind of changed in the coloration was she no longer has those 2 stripes in her hair that she originally did. Now it's just kind of that nice gradient ombre that you see in a Twilight sky, which I honestly thought was just a lot more fitting for her. Now the next couple of changes I kind of made based on feedback I had for the original coloration of her. I had a few people say that they didn't quite like how dark and bright her colors were, it just didn't feel too balanced to them. So I went ahead and gave her some more markings. I added gradients to her hoof feathering as well as her muzzle, and I also gave her more of a star patch near her horn, since I think the whole star look really suits Twilight, since, well, it's Twilight, and I'm gonna repeat a lot in this video. That's the main characterization and character design thing I went for her was just Twilight, 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 because if you're gonna name someone something, it should be their main inspiration, I think. But truthfully, I am just really happy for all the feedback I got on these ponies. I think their designs ended up a lot better because of it. For instance, Twilight's little star patch, I think it looks really cute on her. In the original sketch, I couldn't figure out how to make it work, and a lot of people suggesting it made me feel a lot better about the design decision in the end. And I do agree, I think it looks really good on Twilight, and I'm really grateful for the community I have around me that helped me make this video and helped me with the designs, because I definitely don't think they would be as good without the criticism that I got from them. That is going to bring us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, consider leaving a like. My commissions are also open on Ko-Fi if you would like to go and check those out. And if you do want to see more of this content, I am going to be doing a redesign of all the princesses in My Little Pony Gen 4, so consider sticking around and maybe subscribing to see more of that content. I love all of you guys. I hope you have a great day, and remember to fly high and be kind.